What is up, everyone? It is the Train Freak here, and today we're going to go over Delta Pines Subdivision, Anyrail6, Part 2. Before we get to that, as the Alco RS1 is going by, carrying a few boxcars, let's talk about a couple announcements real quick. First one being Sidetrack Sunday, 8 o'clock Eastern tonight, and it will be on my channel. I did not host it last week. Me and Ray, we swapped this month. So tonight, Sidetrack Sunday, I will be having a special guest, and you'll just have to wait and see who is going to be on. Alright, next announcement. 700 subscriber contest. We had a prize not claimed. So what does this mean for you? Everybody else has got a second chance. Now, I know when I did the awards, Tyler from Lackawanna Railfan was the first winner, which he would have typically got either that HO, N, or O scale prize. He was the HO winner. The winner, or the runner-up, was supposed to get the Tsunami sound card too. Tyler messaged me and asked me if he could have that Soundtrack Tsunami sound card. And I said, I don't have a problem with it as long as the other winner doesn't have a problem with it. And I told him, I said, if the prize ain't claimed, then yes, I'll let you have it. Well, unfortunately, the prize was not claimed. So, for you that was looking forward to possibly winning that HO, that N or O scale piece of rolling stock, I think they're all box cars. Hey, now you got a second chance. So keep an eye out for when I throw up a random live that's going to be that 700 subscriber bingo. Now, Tyler, unfortunately, is no longer eligible to win because he has claimed his prize. And then the winner that was announced is also not eligible because he failed to claim his prize. So, like I said, keep a lookout on that. Alright, I do have something else. It's not really an announcement or whatnot, but I have a locomotive. And I'm going to show it to you real quick. What I have in front of me is a Southern Pacific E8/9 locomotive, number 6053. This is a Proto 2000 series. I bought this thing a few years ago, and I'm going to see if you can see that if the camera zooms in correctly. But I bought this locomotive a few years ago thinking that I was going to use it to my layout. And since then, I got an Alco PA. And I really like the Alco's passenger units over the E units. So I have decided that I'm going to go ahead and sell that unit. So if you're interested, let me know. Right now it is DC. With and it's got two headlights, but the upper headlight does have the Mars strobe on it. I have never ran it. I purchased it as new old stock. That means the hobby shop had it for a while, but it's never been ran. It has been out of the box and put on a non-powered track, just kind of as a display thing on one of my previous layouts. So if you're interested in that locomotive, let me know. And if you're like, well, maybe I would be interested if I had DCC and sound, I can fix you up. I can put Tsunami 2 sound in it. I have the decoder for it, and I've got a speaker for it too. Of course, that will drive the price up. But if that's something you want, hey, just give me a buzz, email. It's in the About section of my YouTube. For those on mobile, you actually have to go to a computer and pull up YouTube to find my email in the About section. So just let me know if you're interested or not, and we'll work something out. All right, so let's get to this layout. So 3 eras. This is the only bit of general information I did not cover in the last video. 3 eras. The way I plan on running these eras is January through April. We're going to run the first era, which is 1960. That's just like that Alco RS1 that went by. Some of my other locomotives, I have an SD9 in Black Widow. I've got a GP9 that's also in Black Widow. I've got a couple of Alco PAs in Daylight. And then I've got an Alco S3, a GE70 tonner, which I bought decals for it. So I'm going to have to decal the whole thing, and that one's going to be fun. And then I've got a slew of F7 units. I've got an ABBA consist, and I even got a 4 set of Stewart FTs. Two are cotton belts in the yellow and what they call Confederate gray scheme. It's very similar to the L&N. The cotton belt FTs were the only units that were ever painted that way, and then eventually they got repainted to Black Widow, which are the other two FTs that I have, and it's an ABBA as well. So I've got quite a few locomotives for it. I do not know if I have enough rolling stock, so that's going to be interesting. Some of the industries on the layout are going to be limited just to that era, like the High Stake Ranch. And that's because after the 60s, they did not run stock cars on the railroad due to they having to stop so many times to give the waters and or the animals water, food, allow them to graze in some type of field. So a lot of the railroads kind of went away from hauling livestock. Next era, May through August, is going to be 1976. Which is perfect for Independence Day since it falls in that. Now, 1976 is also the bicentennial year, so that's kind of how that matches. Some of the locomotives I have for that, I've got another SD9 coming, but it's in Bloody Nose. I've got, SD45T-2, a U25B, GP38-2, and that's just to name a few. I know I got some other type of locomotives that could fit in that era. So that's that one there. I've got a few locomotives for. I don't know if I have enough. And then I know I've got quite a bit of rolling stock for it too. And then the last 4 months out of the year, September through December, I plan on running 1996, but everything has to be dated August or older because in September of 96 is when Union Pacific took over the Cotton Belt or the SP. Technically, the SP took over the Cotton Belt in 92, but the SP did not repaint all the locomotives to SP. They did leave quite a few that just said Cotton Belt. So, but some of the locomotives that you would see in that era would be like a -9 or a GP60, for example. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different locomotives that you would have seen in that era as well. So that just kind of breaks down some of the eras as to what I'm doing. Now, what I'll probably end up doing at the beginning is strictly just running one era. And I might swap it out for another one because I know I have a good collection for 60 and 76. 96 I really do not have a good collection for. And of course, I can't remember if I mentioned but running the first two eras, the yard will be breaking all the trains down. Now, there will be like a unit grain train for 1976 that will bypass the yard, and the same for 96 too. And one of the industries will service that unit grain train. But as far as like the mixed manifest and stuff will all be classified in that yard. For 96, that might not be the case. It might change a little bit. So, other than that, let's go ahead and get to showing the layout. So, like I said, if you have not caught part 1, make sure you go back and check it. Links in the description below, and the card is at the kind of closer to the beginning of the video. Alright, so here's level 1. Now, this big circle here, this is our helix to go up to level 2. Alright, so level 2 is not going to show that helix. Alright, so I put the bench work for level 1 as green. We go to bench work for level 2. It's kind of a peachy color. And it's literally the exact same dimensions as level 1. Alright, level 2 track. This is what we're looking at. Helix comes out here. It's going to run around this way, come on around this way. We have a balloon loop just like before. So this is point B of the layout. Point A is on the bottom level. And then, of course, we got our staging area down there. So I'm going to make it smaller, and we're going to start focusing on this section over here. Alright, so staging. I've got 4 tracks, just like the bottom level. Okay, 3 tracks will always be occupied. A 4th track will always be empty to allow a inbound train. Of course, same with the backdrop here. We have a balloon loop coming out and through the backdrop, and it comes back with a double track. And that's just to kind of simulate, you know, hey, if a train is taking the balloon loop, it's leaving the layout, and another train is coming on, even though it's the same train. I've got a couple of industries here. I've got a little stub here for Morton Salt. The way Morton Salt is angled will allow people standing in this area here to see the animation sign on the building. I'm debating on if I want to weather it or not. It does kind of look plasticky, but I really do not want to hit that animated sign because it's really cool. Inside the balloon loop, I have listed as TBA, to be announced, because I have no earthly idea what to put inside this balloon loop. So, if you would like to make a suggestion of any industry or industries that you have not seen on either level 1 or level 2, please put it down in the comments below, and I will, if I see some things that I like, I might let the Patreon members vote on it. So I do like to get those people involved. As far as the track, I just threw in a couple of straight pieces. We can always change that up. But as far as that turnout will be assigned for some industry or industries, depending on what all y'all mentioned, can fit inside this here balloon loop. Alright, carrying on up a little higher, we have the town of Watson Hall. Watson Hall will have a small little depot here. So this is going to represent a rural town where the depot will have not just passenger but also freight. So that's why it has a little siding here for express REA boxcars, for example. And I can shorten this siding up if needed. Right here we got Riceland. That's going to be the big grain elevator that I have. So for 1960, we'll probably spot a few boxcars in this area for the grain silos to empty into, because that's what they used in 1960. As far as 1976 and 1996, we will run actual unit grain trains. And so that's why I have this track open-ended just for those unit grain trains to run through. So that'd be pretty cool. And the way that would work is the train would literally stop under the downspout. It would have to wait 5 seconds to simulate it filling, pull up to the next locomotive. Or not locomotive, but the next covered hopper. Alright, and what we're going to do is come around a corner. Now, in this little area will be a scenic break. But what we have here is this is going to kind of represent an industrial complex. And I wanted some insane switching here. I wanted this to be the area where you're really going to have to think outside of the box to pick up and drop off all these cars without fouling up both mains. So I've got a crossover here. So that way, if someone is working this industry with the local, they're going to have this upper track here tied up, but this allows a passing train to take the bottom track and bypass. So there are going to be some stipulations where this track will be fouled, but there's no way around it. I did put in these 2 little tracks here. This is going to be your runaround per se. But we do have 3 industries that are just going to be straight back in. That's not going to require the runaround, and that's Gamer and Thrones. Juicy J's Meat Company acquires these actual 3 tracks, which do merge into this one right here. And then I've got another TBA. Yes, I want your opinion on another industry. Stipulation on this one is it has to be a background industry because I do not have a lot of space. Of course, we got the Tetanus Scrap Company and Passmore Gas Propane Company. Both of these are going to require cars to be pushed in by the locomotive, which requires this here runaround. TBA requires to be empty for a car to be picked up or dropped off at Tetanus. So I threw in quite a few kinks on here. So this is probably going to be the hardest switching job on the layout, in my opinion. Alright, we're going to carry on. Here I wrote bridge, and I wrote a couple of straight lines, and that's just to kind of represent, hey, a bridge is going there. This is going to be another scenic break, however, my river's not going to be straight. I plan on snaking it over this way and putting a bend here and bending it that way. So it's going to kind of look like a figure, like a letter S per se. Rivers in the real world do not run straight. They have bends in them all over the place. So I wanted to mimic that as well. And putting scenic breaks to kind of divide the areas out actually helps. So this area back over here is going to be known as Watson Hall. Now we have Watson Hall Industrial. Let's go to the next section. We got Y Junction. Why? I don't know. But I thought it was a good name, and it came from the old layout. So I wanted to incorporate that. So we have Y Junction here, which is going to have a little depot, just like Watson Hall. It's a very small railroad town for the Cotton Belt. However, the other railroad that's going to intersect Y Junction has a bigger station, but that station would actually be located somewhere out in the middle of the room. So we didn't have to build it, right? So that railroad, if you're wondering, you probably already guessed it, considering that you saw the locomotive earlier in this video, and you saw it last week, is the Rock Island. Now, someone asked me, why would I have a depot and some industries and an interchange yard right across from it? Small towns actually had that, believe it or not. They would have an interchange fairly close to one of the railroads. So, Rock Island, staging track is here. It's going to come out of the backdrop. This is why we got a few trees there like normal. Alright. And its main line would literally come up, come this way, and it would cross over my double track. Okay? So that's why I got 2 diamonds right there. As far as this little short piece of track, the 2 diamonds and this piece of track here are not going to be powered. I do not want to take a chance of a locomotive coming this direction and flying off the track or the layout. That would not be good. That would be a very bad situation. So these pieces of track will not be powered. This turnout here is going to be put in a fixed position for diverging. So that way all trains that come this way are going to come this direction. So that's kind of a double fail type safe to make sure that I do not have a train come and run off the layout. Now, the Rock Island, the job about it is responsible for these industries over by this interchange. The Cotton Belt's just going to be switching cars in and out between the Rock Island. A lot of these cars could just go off-site. Some might go to an industry, but if they do, the Cotton Belt would have to drop these cars off in the interchange yard. So let me scroll up and I'll show you the interchange. It's these 4 tracks, but I might drop it down to 3 tracks. I don't know yet. Okay, so these 4 tracks there is an interchange, and it's got a standard ladder right here. This is actually a double slip crossover, so this allows the Cotton Belt to be able to back into this track, and it also allows the Rock Island to access the other tracks. This track here is just literally for a runaround, because some of the industries are going to require the Rock Island to be pushing back. As the Rock Island moves forward, it's going to be taking this section here. It will take the single slip, and it's going to pull up into this turnout here, drop its first car off on this switch, pull up and into this track, and then it's going to back through this way and come this way all the way over here, take the crossover at the bottom of the screen, and then that's how it's going to run around its own train. And then it can start dropping cars, picking cars up in the interchange. As it drops things off, then it will be able to back cars into Shakasit. And what you know, another TBA. Yes, I need your suggestion on that one as well, and it has to be a backdrop building. But the Rock Island will also have to push a car into Fresh and Funky Produce. So I had to throw a runaround in there as well. So that kind of wraps up the way that the Rock Island is going to be working with the Cotton Belt. And then continuing on around the track, we got another crossover here, and this is literally where our double track kind of separates and goes to a single. This track here will curve and start going into the helix. And I'll talk more about that helix here in a minute. But for the time being, and I just kind of threw this trackage in here, this is not necessarily how it's going to work, but literally in the middle of the helix, and all of this area over here is going to be the Peckerwood Sawmill complex. I haven't built all my buildings yet, so I don't know how much space it's going to take, but this is the way that I'm wanting things to work. I plan on putting a backdrop along this edge, because I don't want someone over here standing watching a train come out. Okay, so as the helix is going counterclockwise, the train will come out about in this area, and it's still climbing, and it's literally coming around, and then it finally hits that track, and it continues on. Okay, and it doesn't fully reach the level till it gets to this little joint right there. Okay, so this right here is all still an incline. The radius of the helix is 32 inches on a 4-inch rise. That is exactly a 2% grade. So I've got plenty of real estate in here and over here to throw all of these sawmill buildings, because I have, you know, the actual lumber mill, I've got a planer mill, I've got all the different outbuildings, you know, that allows like wood chips, things like that. So this is going to be a pretty big deal. Okay. And then someone asked the question, well, how are you planning on incorporating the helix? That's how. So if I've got a backdrop over here, I got a backdrop over here. Now below the backdrop on this side, you know, I planned on walling off, you know, level 1. I'm going to actually put in windows so we can see the trains. And the same thing through the stud door as well. I'm going to put in a window so we can see the trains. And over here, I don't really think there is a need for a window, but if there is, I can put one down on the bottom as well. And then there's more than enough space to climb under. I mean, the layout level is really high to begin with. So it's not going to be much for someone to duck down, get up inside the helix, and fix it. And I would think having 2 or 3 windows would give enough light so they can see. So that is pretty much it. I guess I didn't mention Shakasit. Someone was saying, oh man, you can't get rid of the Shakasit Furniture Company. That's like the best name industry you got. There it is. That's where the Shakasit's going. It's Rock Island's going to be servicing it. And I even kept Fresh and Funky Produce, which at the time I did not have a building, and I still don't have a building for it. But all of those are going to be backdrop buildings. So, like I said, I've got 3 TBAs. I really need some help with those. So please throw your suggestions on those. 2 of them have to be backdrops. And then as far as that TBA that's in the balloon loop, it could be one industry, it could be, several industries, but I really do not want the same industry or multiple industries that handle the same commodities as far as production. I don't want like 2 furniture companies or 2 scrap yards, for example. I want to try to mix up all my commodities. So let me know what you got as far as suggestions. And as far as some of these industries, they might be serviceable through multiple eras and they might not be. High Stakes Ranch is only going to be serviceable through 1 era, and that's completely fine. That means Juicy J's meat company is not going to be receiving any type of livestock for the later 2 eras, and that's completely fine. It will receive it by truck. So, and not by rail. So we can still keep that company open. It's just going to be a little different how things operate in the other eras. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up Delta Pines Subdivision. If you got any questions, feel free to ask. And I am hoping next weekend, that's when my uncle's supposed to come down, and we're really going to get on top of getting this room enclosed. Something else I did was I ordered it's called a through-the-wall AC unit, but it has a heat pump, and it's rated at 10,000 BTUs. So it says it can cool or heat a room up to 425 square feet. This one, if I took the exact measurements, it's around 380, so that should be no problem. So other than that, I hope to see you tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern on Sidetrack Sunday. Like I said, I got a special guest. I might invite some of the Sidetrack Sunday crew up. Might not. Who knows? Or I might invite them and we'll just have to see who kicks the door down in the basement. So be sure to check that out tonight. And also keep an eye out for the second rendition of the 700 subscriber contest to see who our next winner is going to be. Alright? Other than that, y'all be safe out there, and I will see y'all next time. Happy railroading.